If there's anything guaranteed to terrify the would-be initiate away from this path, it's that the road to enlightenment is through the dark. Not just through the dark of the night, but also through the dark of the soul, the dark of the subconscious, even the dark of the collective human consciousness. This secret method of travel to the light, to enlightenment, is symbolized in the myths and philosophies of the moon, which is tonight's subject. We're gonna pull it apart and put it back together again, solve e coagula, and really discover what the ancients meant when they said, silvery like the moon. My name's Ryan Seven, and welcome to The Secret Science. So there it is, the silvery moon. How many stories have been begun on a cold and moonlit night? There's something about it that makes it fit for myth and story. You realise it's there from being a little kid. There's something wonderful and distant about it, something exotic, something to reach for, something mythical and magical. Rather than it being the daylight and the sun being cast and everything being visible, the moon only pops up at night as a nightlight, as it were. A guide in the dark of the mystery, of those things that you don't know, of the chaos where new things are discovered. So of course, that luminary is ripe for the secrets and symbols and mysteries that the magicians wanted to put in there, which were the opposite to the activity, the opposite to the day, the opposite to the light, the dark, the opposite to order, the chaos. All symbolized by the luminary of the night, the moon. In the previous Secret Science, we saw how the sun is the active principle of the universe. But when you think about it, there'd be very little point in having just an active principle alone. There's no point in having loads of energy if you've got nothing to energize. So the moon, for the magicians, symbolized this process of receiving this energetic principle and embodying it and being activated by it, being energized by it, and forming into something. We have the masculine insemination and the feminine gestation. The sun represents open, on, the light. The moon represents closed, off, the dark. We have order and we have chaos. We have masculine, we have feminine. This dualism is literally the basis of seemingly our universe. Everything has these two principles within it. As we said, night and day, on and off, open, closed. These are just two ends of a spectrum. However, those two ends exist. We do seem to live in a dual universe. So these two principles are then the foundation and guide for magicians and for philosophers and for religious types and for the secretive types to build everything else upon. Understanding that for every light there's a dark, and being presented with the light, also being able to appreciate at that same moment that there is a dark, all things stand in the presence of their opposite. This will lead to enlightenment just by the fact that you understand that, okay, it's the good times, but I better be careful because there might be bad times. It's a vision, it's a third eye vision. And from this understanding, we will now be able to extract the rest of this secret science. The sun is Big Daddy energy. The moon is Big Mama energy, and when Big Daddy and Big Mama want to make a baba, they need to be able to do so. Metaphysically speaking, they need to be able to come together. And so you have these two diametrically opposite forms, which are prevalent in the universe, but in magic, they're symbolized by the wand and the cup. The wand is the masculine, which is you know what, and equally so is the cup or the vessel. So the sun is like the wand in that it is trying to fertilize, trying to inseminate the moon with its light, and so too the wand and the cup. The wand is placed into the cup. I'm trying to be nice. I'm not doing very well. So the feminine archetype, which is the moon, which receives that energy, is also the water. It is the embodiment of things. It's this idea of a matrix. It's the idea of a woman. It's this idea of a female, the feminine. It takes, it receives, it gestates. It's like life-giving waters. In fact, one of the main symbolic representations of the feminine is the water. So then we also have the fact that water, when poured into a vessel, takes the shape of the vessel. We have the fact that any information, when placed into a medium, takes the shape of that medium. If I put my thoughts into English, they take the form of English, and I'm not speaking which is a very low tongue indeed. So it's actually raining now, and the fact is that I am the feminine to the masculine rain. I'm soaking it and absorbing it, and it's taking a kind of Ryan shape to it. So any vessel is considered feminine. And so the moon represents things like the mind, the emotion, the waters, all the watery emotional places that actually are the environment itself. The vessel is the environment which the rod sits in. So then, as I said, it might be a mind, it might be a dream. These are, it might be a place, it might be a mood. It might be an emotion. It's a thought that you hold. It's the spirit of an area. It's the cup in which we all sit. If we are the masculine energy, then we all sit in this kind of feminine environment. Like the earth is feminine, Mother Earth. So we have this metaphysical masculine principle that inseminates the feminine principle, and then that gives it form, it gives it structure, and embodies it in its matrix. Same as with the sun casting its light on the moon, which, depending on its own cycle, gives it a different form, starting at the kind of void, pre-birth, post-death state that is the new moon, the blackness, you can't see the moon, and then it starts to wax into existence, into form, until it hits the full moon, which is absolutely to do with birth and life and gestation. It's to do with our own female's gestative period and the menstrual period, the ladies' period, and birth. The mystical number of the moon is 9, and birth is absolutely 9 moons, 9 months to make a little baby. And so the moon is also to do with domesticity and milk and home and nourishment and nurturing and mammaries. And so equally, life comes out at night. The reproductive cycle of many animals, not just the birth part, but the actual getting it on in the first place part, is governed by the full moon, because you can see each other. You can, if there's a display to be done, you can see the display out of the eye of most predators that will come out in the daytime, because they can see very well. You can see quite well on a full moon. So then we go from this full moon and then we start to wane again. So too, we come from the fullness of life and then things start to die and wane and the moon wanes and then we end up again in that death void state, which is the new moon. It's an English summer night, so of course it started raining, but no better time to talk about the watery rulership of the moon. Its association to the tides as it comes around the earth, pulling the bodies of water around it, creating a high and low tide as the bulge of water seeks that gravitational center of the moon. And so it has rulership over the bodies of water, obviously, but not just the external ones, but also the internal ones, like the emotions. Your moods come and they go, they peak and they trough, just like a wave. So too, the cycles of things and the peaks and the troughs of things, the peak of remembrance and the trough of forgetfulness. In fact, the root word for memory comes from the Egyptian word for water, which was mem. So it's like the depths of memories, like the depths of these watery things that they come and they go. Sometimes you're in a memory and then it's gone again. And it's like this depthful archive, this archive which is the subconscious or unconscious self. Your memories are accessible, but they're not there all the time. You go absolutely lunatic. Lunar, the moon. So, the moon is absolutely associated with the watery modalities and the depths and bodies of things. So as we said, mind, memory, emotion, the subconscious. It's innate in our culture and our language that emotions are a watery thing. In this country, in England, we say, oh, stop being so wet if somebody's being overly emotional, or you might just call them a wet blanket. If you think about it, emotions are like the tides. They come and they go, and it's not always down to how you are necessarily thinking or wanting to be. They just happen to you. You know, peak emotions and the doldrums are just like a wave. It's like elated. You might be crying with the emotion, watery again. Oh, this is so wonderful. Or you might be right down in the valley, in the trough, and oh my God, this is awful. Or you might just be in the middle and everything's pretty good. Pretty okay in the middle. We should also talk about this mothery matrix, which is this feminine multitude, whereas the sun is either on or it's off. It's either day or it's night. The moon is actually a multiplicity of cycles. It's a full spectrum. And so it's associated with the right hemisphere of the brain, whereas the left hemisphere of the brain is masculine and logical and illuminating and looking at minutiae and able to focus. The moon, the feminine, the right hemisphere of the brain is more creative, generative. It looks at the whole. It is more poetic and artistic in its perspective. And it looks at the multitude rather than the singular or the binary. The symbol for the moon in the magical and alchemical arts is the crescent moon, denoting its cycle. In alchemy specifically, the moon is associated with silver for its reflective qualities. On the Kabbalistic tree of life, the moon is represented by Yesod, which means foundation. It's the generative area once again. It's a pattern holder, like the unconscious memory, but not just the unconscious memory of humans, the unconscious memory of all. It's the place where the patterns are stored and are then focused like a lens into reality, giving birth from the astral, which is where the patterns are manifested from. It waxes and wanes between the two pillars, which are the two poles, which is why witches will use it for hexes and spells. They'll understand that the waxing is the beginning of something, pushing it into fulfillment, and never to do something on the waning of the moon. So this is the foundation of things, the storehouse of images and ideas that then make up the reality as they are lensed through the moon. And this foundation is not only a cosmic secret, but it's the sacred secret, which is sex, and essentially the sexual philosophy of sex magic, this being all about the generative area, which is, in a sentence, sexual excitement without release, and then that energy is repurposed in other parts of the body. This is the secret of Yesod. Yesod is very close to the word Yesud, which in Hebrew means secret. The other secrets of the moon are hidden within the tarot cards associated with the moon: the High Priestess, the Chariot, and the Moon. The High Priestess card represents the sacred feminine, which is the subject of this video. She is the vessel. In this case, more secretly, she is the vessel of this hidden knowledge. She encodes this hidden knowledge. She is the one that receives it and guards it, just like she guards the gates to the unconscious mind, which is how we do magic in the first place. It's with working on the unconscious mind and by its rules that we impress upon it, and that this art is accomplished. The Chariot being very much like the High Priestess, being associated with Cancer, the home of the moon. This is the place of the hidden pattern, the matrix, the holy grail, the soul, the embodiment of the art in action. This is your spiritual armor. This is having all parts of yourself so perfectly lined up with nature that you can't help but just go. Then we have the card of the moon, which is about access to the unconscious and the perils and the powers gained thereby. The unconscious mind has many phantoms in it. Many people are scared to get into a trance state because they're worried about what they'll see when they get down there. What horrors lurk in their own mind that they won't be able to run away from. However, as said at the beginning of the episode, this is also the path to the enlightenment of the sun. That it's by digging deep into the scarier, darker parts of the soul that we can extract the truth of ourselves, maybe even work with it, maybe release some of those demons, and thereby lighten our load and find the route to the path of the sun and enlightenment. But also in that the subconscious mind is that place worked on best by magicians, and that this is something of a gate, a portal to the Eureka-style moments of enlightenment, where somehow seemingly the universe downloads something into your consciousness, and somehow something unknown becomes known. Gnosis.